we have a trio to come and share some nuggets, a trio of industry veteran that's going to join us right now. Hi, everybody. We've got Dara Dini from Dara Dini Consulting. We've got Joan Fitzgerald from Data Impacts, who you were previously working at PetMeds.com, a huge online retailer. And Philippe Gagnon, a fellow, almost French-Canadian, but now in LA, working for Sur la Table, as a VP of marketing. Well, thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
Great. Yeah, of course. Really excited to be here.
And today we're going to talk about common creative mistakes, how to avoid them, how to measure creative impact, and a little bit of the science and the math behind, creative strategy. So I know Dara specifically, that's one topic that you love. So, and we're also going to probe you a little bit, as entrepreneurs, how do you what have you succeeded in this year? What are some of those key wins, and how did you get there? How did you even just ideate them and iterate on them? And also some of the less beautiful stuff and some things that didn't work in 2023. But so this is going to be a panel format. I'll ask some questions. Please jump in. And but yeah, maybe just a quick round of intro as we're starting. Dara, you wanna start?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick things off. So my name is Dara Dini. I'm a performance creative consultant. I actually just recently announced that after years of working in the agency world, leading performance growth and creative teams, I'm actually going out on my own as a full-time consultant and creator as of next week. So that's my big piece of news, and I'm really excited to do that.
Congratulations. And Joan, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. My name is Joan Fitzgerald. I was recently the head of business intelligence for PetMeds, which is a major e-commerce retailer that specializes in pet medications and pet health and wellness. Was really happy to be working there for quite a while. And I have recently started my own consultancy focusing on performance marketing.
All right. Hey, my name is Philippe Gagnon. I lead performance marketing for Sur la Table. I've been in this paid marketing world for a better part of a decade here, and excited to chat with you all.
We know we're grown-ups when we count our adult memories in decade. That's
yes.
That's it was 10 years ago, and I was already an adult and doing stuff. So, let's start a little bit broad, but what's your biggest, and Phil, we'll start with you. What's your biggest customer acquisition win of the year? What did you implement at Sur la Table that lifted the metrics on your new CAC?
Yeah, so we did something a little bit unconventional recently, which is shifting away from Performance Max and the smart shoppings back into the standards. We kind of call it leaning in on the classics. The idea behind this is that Performance Max, and I'm sure you just heard about this from John. He definitely is a big proponent of this idea, but the standard shopping has a lot of intent. When you start mixing in display and you start mixing in all these other placements, you lose. You start to blend in and reduce incrementality a little bit. So our whole idea here was to really lean in on the highest intent, highest incremental traffic, and really take away some of the cross-channel confusion that muddies a large marketing mix with a lot of different channels and touch points, including stores. So for us, that's been a really big win. We've been able to really quantify the impact of it by seeing more click to conversion directly, less gray area, less noise. And, for me, that's quite that helps me sleep at night.
That's great. Yeah. I mean, everybody turned on Performance Max in the last several months. And now, you're the first one I see turning them back off. But I'm sure it's a trend that's going to pick up some steam. Joan, what about yourself? What did you do this year that really moved the needle for?
So the main thing was that we exceeded our new customer acquisition target and reported this on Wall Street for the first time in 10 years. So that was a huge win at the company. And I was, super happy to be running performance marketing essentially and achieving that goal. I think I'm really happy that we follow John Moran. He's someone else I work with. And we also, focus on, and my clients and my consultancy focus on CAC targets. right? The cost of acquiring a new customer, as opposed to sort of this legacy focus on ROAS, because ROAS just doesn't really give you the financial measurement that you need to really drive your success. We, obviously use Northbeam, and Northbeam really enables us to report on our CAC metrics at a very granular level, including, of course, channel by channel, but also at the creative level. So that was really a part of our, mission last year, was to really focus on that new customer acquisition target, exceed that target, and it was a great win for the company.
So really going granular to understand that first time CAC all the way to the creative level helped you a little bit, raise the standard for your company. That's great. And Dara, what about yourself? What's working?
Yeah, so, really what I focused a lot on this year was really buttoning up our creative production process, especially dialing in on the way that we are approaching creative strategy research and customer psychology. And we really focused to streamline that process and also begin to scale that process, which was huge in getting wins for our clients, especially on the creative side. And I'd say that really one of the wins where I saw this working and it really gave me joy was being able to work with a few legacy brands on reaching new markets. So being able to work with a brand that generally targets older millennials plus, and being able to open them up to Gen Z was something that I found to be really, really cool this year. And at the heart of that process was all about creative strategy research. So I've been focusing on that a lot this year.
That's awesome. Well, that's the main topic of today, actually, the creative process. So let's dive in, and maybe we'll continue on with you, Dara. So tell us a little bit more about how you're approaching that. How are you starting to ideate new creatives, or just what's the starting line for expanding your TAM into a new customer base?
Yeah. So the way that I like to do it is I like to break it down into a 3-step process. So number one, when I'm working with a new brand, I like to conduct what I call a reputation analysis. So I'm going to be diving in on things like, how does the press feel about them? What is the general sentiment of their brand? I'm also going to be diving into what conversations are being generated online about a brand. I'm going to look at some of the blog posts that are written about them. I'm going to be looking at some of the Reddit forums and see really, what are the pain points? What are the negative reactions, the positive reactions? What are the trigger points that are getting people to become interested, but also ultimately buy? I'm also doing a huge deep dive on customer review mining and those testimonials, and really trying to pick out, okay, what is the trigger to get people to buy? What pain points do they have? How can we agitate those pain points? And then, of course, I'm also, cross-analyzing their greater position in the market. So I'm also conducting that competitor research. And we haven't even talked about the past performance data, because that's also a huge part of what we're looking at, is being able to see, what type of creatives they've made so far and what type of impact that's actually had, and being able to identify, hey, are there any current gaps in their creative strategy that we need to fill, or other unique ways that we can begin communicating to those customers?
That's great. And Joan and Phil, how are you guys measuring the success of your new creatives? What kind of metrics are you looking at to see if something is working, something needs adjustment? What are you looking at?
Yeah, so generally that's a challenge for a lot of my clients, especially for the clients that I have that are not direct to consumer, or have that as a part of their portfolio, and it's not a huge part of it's not the totality of their sales. So they have retail sales, offline sales and online sales. And I mean, one of the challenges is really to measure the impact of what I'll call lower funnel creatives, your TikToks, your Google shopping, the carousel is a form of creative there, against your linear TV and streaming video creatives, right? And that's something where we really worked with Northbeam, not to put a commercial in here, but we did work with Northbeam to create a solution that combined market mix modeling with multi-touch attribution, right? Because otherwise you're just not going to see the impact of the upper funnel creatives, like the television creatives, video creatives. You're not going to measure that accurately in a platform unless you use sort of a triangulation of measurement approaches. And so that's what we did. Most of my customers who are primarily direct to consumers, they get to a certain point where again, this is my own, kind of focus on new customer acquisition. You get to a point where you're acquiring new customers, but you see deterioration in your repeat customer rate, right? And so that's a signal that you need to make a change in your marketing mix, right? And create that visibility. It's what Procter & Gamble called the first moment of truth, which for them is when you're in the store, in the aisle, do you pick them? Well, what is the basis for that choice? It's the same with Google Shopping, right? You see this carousel of different brands at different price points or different products at different price points. What is going to cause them to choose us as the retailer, as their purchase point? And that a lot of time comes from the image that you create, the memories that you create with this shopper using more upper funnel channels. Could be display marketing. In some ways, Facebook is a little less of a lower funnel than it used to be. So Facebook, streaming media is kind of huge. You could even count audio in this. But I think that's one of our main measurement challenges that we really tackled, which was how do we measure it all together and make those kind of fundamental changes in our mix to invest more for some of my clients in upper funnel.
That's great. And Phil, what about yourself? How do you measure the success of your creatives?
Yeah, it's tricky. To piggyback a bit on what Joan said, we really need to look at the funnel, the whole funnel. So that's two different layers of that. One is, are we talking to new people or are we talking to people who already know us? I think we need to find the creative that's really resonating with new people, leaning in on the middle of funnel stuff, the retargeting stuff. While the results look really great, it's a slippery slope. Leaning in on those results doesn't necessarily net you more. So you really need to figure out what's working with people that don't know you and what's really bringing people in. Getting into the granular though, really CTR and CPC is incredibly important. Nothing really happens without that, but it's not, we're not in the business of buying traffic. We're in the business of selling. So I need to see a little bit more than that. I need to see people adding to cart. I need to see people, initiating checkout. I need to see people actually buying stuff. And so one of the things that we're struggling with is with a platform like TikTok is we see great top of funnel metrics. We see everything we want to see in terms of new visitor percentage. We're seeing low CPCs, high CTRs, all that good stuff, but we're not seeing people buy. And so it's a tough thing that's not success for those ad creatives. Success for the ad creatives ultimately leads to some kind of purchase. Now, of course, that's different if we're talking about CTV or if we're talking about Google Shopping. There's different levels of intent in all of that. But at the end of the day, we're here to sell. So we need to see.
Can I mention something else? Because you just brought up one of my favorite topics, which is actually like TikTok and Snapchat. I just saw some great presentations from both of the companies about the kinds of creative that work, right? Because a lot of my clients, again, some of them are not all direct to consumer, tend to repurpose their upper funnel, video creative and use it in the lower funnel channels. And these presentations just say, don't do that, right? When you've got a creator economy, those creators are super effective. You need the creator to embrace your brand, to show your brand, but you also need, as you the brand, you need to be sort of supporting those creators and very visible in how you're supporting the creator economy. So it really kind of turns everything end to end compared to what a lot of my clients have done traditionally in the upper funnel channels, which is more awareness building. At some point, it's a purchase intent, but like the form of the creative, right? We have the luxury of a 30-second period to talk to our consumers in linear TV. Well, you don't have that online. So, and plus they're in the market, right? It's much more about recency, much shorter videos. And even the form of the video really needs to change from a narrative story to more of a creator economy that's informative, it's entertaining. And I think that's one of the kind of key things that I work on with my clients is really understanding creative form.
And that's a great question that we also had planned for the session. It's like, actually, how do you reuse or repurpose, if at all,
Right, if
parts
at all.
of assets from one channel to other channel? Is there any cross-platform pollination that can happen, or you really need dedicated resources for the different channels?
I'll jump in on this one.
Yeah, please
but
do.
yeah, because Joan, what you're saying about TikTok, it's so true. Like, I have not been able to repurpose, OTT and Facebook ads onto TikTok. And it's actually something I advise my clients that want to get up and on the platform. I'm like, congratulations, you just 2x'd your creative production budget, because you're going to have to account for a whole new platform here. But the plus side is that a lot of times what I see is if you do develop creative that is converting on TikTok, then you can take that content and then have that feed into your Meta ads and your Facebook ads. True. I actually worked with a client recently, and we were getting them up on TikTok, and I gave them very harsh guidelines. I'm like, this is not going to convert for you for 3 months. It's just not. We are doing a test. Buckle up and let's do this. It actually ended up converting on the back end better for them than their Meta ads. And we were able to scale up to spending on TikTok $500K per month, which is amazing for the platform, especially, but it was a lead generation client. And what we found too is when we would then take that content and put it on Meta ads, that was actually what was converting a lot better for them. So now we've been able to make that client a plan moving forward, saying, hey, you know what? We're going to reduce our budget for more of the lifestyle shoots that we were doing on OTT and for Meta ads. And we're now going to focus a little bit more on developing relationships with creators to make content for TikTok that we will then repurpose for your other paid social channels. And we're also doing a few tests too to take some of that content and putting it on television. So I'm, stay tuned, but we're testing that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. So really, the Meta content or Instagram content doesn't really populate well into the TikTok channel, but that pure UGC type format goes the other way pretty well. So yeah, so it's a wonderful.
I think that's an open question whether it goes the other way really well. We know that streaming 30-second video, in my opinion, does not go well that direction to the lower funnel channels. But I think that experiment with, okay, if you find something that works on TikTok, how do you work to repurpose it sort of up the funnel? I think that's a fascinating question.
That's awesome. Phil, anything to add there on if you've tested those creatives across channels, or if you've seen things that are working or to avoid?
Yeah. Well, one of the interesting things that we see is that TikTok creative seems to do well in a lot of different areas. It seems to do well on Instagram. People respond very positively to this, but not vice versa. And honestly, I still don't love it. I'd much rather I'd still rather speak to the audience in the way that they're expecting us to speak to them and play the game the way that they're showing up. So for me, it's very important that we speak to them in the platform as the platform kind of guides us. But yeah, TikTok seems to do well on Instagram regardless. So, hey, we'll take it.
But let's continue on that for a second. What's your process to transform and test different influencer content creative? So how do you do that?
Yeah, so one of the big things is we really need to make sure that we're getting impressions to the new ads. The algos love to lean in on the incumbent winning ads, the tried and true. So we always create two separate campaigns. We have a test campaign and we have what we call our incumbent campaign. We want to see results in the test campaign that beat out the existing ads, at which point we may create a whole new campaign to group everything together and try to get the algorithm to pick up what we think is the winner. But at the end of the day, whatever the algo picks up is what's going to run. So we try to manipulate it as much as we can, but we also have to lean in on whatever the algo decides and whatever's getting us the results. So there is a bit of a game here, but yeah, we're at the mercy as well to the Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok odds here. So
any specific here on your campaign structure? So you mentioned splitting them, can you just maybe tell us what are some of your settings on your creative test campaign?
Well, every campaign type will be split. So we'll have a top of funnel, middle of funnel. We'll have a static or image video creatives, ASC, all that kind of stuff. Like everything's split up in those buckets. And then in those buckets, we have our main campaigns and our test. So any new creative is going to go into a test campaign. We'll test those in batches. The winners that come out of that will work their way into the incumbent campaigns. If we still don't see those creatives working, we'll relaunch those campaigns as separate test campaigns to see if we can make it work. At the end of the day, it's really about just trying to get the algo to pick up what we believe is the winner, but also not taking too many assumptions in the process. We can only do so much. So yeah, in terms of settings, they're very similar on both sides. I want to keep the testing environment as similar as possible between my test and my standard campaign, but really we're just trying to get a read on data and also trying to feed the algo this concept that we need the algo to believe that the ad is as good as we believe it is and the results that we see that it's generating. So it's as much of an art as it is a science, and we're sort of hacking away at the algo to try to get what we want out of it. So I wish I could give you a more
little bit of confirmation bias and on the algorithm. I love it.
Yeah, a little bit. You're trying to get to know the algo.
And there, like I know you've been like a huge power user of like motion and creative analytics tool. So like, how did like the emergence of this new tool category like helped you, and how did it impact your creative workflow on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, it's just like automated a lot of the data and visualizations. Like I have worked in the agency world for years and years, so a big component of my job, whether or not I want to admit it, is reporting, and like being able to communicate not only the data, but also communicate my analysis. So being able to lean into a platform like Motion to kind of just like automate the data, automate the visualizations allows me to do way more of that analysis, and ultimately just do more of the work. So that's why I'm definitely a huge power user of something like that. But I do kind of want to go back to like what Felipe was saying about the structure. This is actually something I've been changing my mind on, and I see a few people asking in the comments section, like, hey, what do you think of retargeting? What do you think of like, how have structures been changing? And I've actually recently changed my mind on how I'm starting to approach a lot of the structure when inside of Ads Manager. Like I used to really have a 3 campaign approach where it's like retargeting, testing campaign, and prospecting scaling campaign. And I'm actually moving to something that's way more broad, like single conversion campaign, launching net new creative tests inside of an ad set, and like allowing CBO or campaign budget optimization, which I know is Advantage Plus optimization, to really distribute the funds and the budget in the way that the algorithm thinks is the best way. Now, if I see like a creative test is not getting as much spend, I can put a minimum or a maximum on that ad set. But I have seen, especially for newer brands or for brands that are spending like sub 500K per month, going towards more of this automated type of campaign structure, I have seen a lift with that. Sometimes we'll also add like an Advantage Plus shopping campaign to have like a secondary campaign. But I found that like my teams and like the growth teams were able to think a lot more about the creative as opposed to the media buying strategy. And that like simpler approach like enabled us to do a lot of that. However, like Felipe, I will say like there are some legacy brands that I work with that have like 10 campaigns, and like most of them are conversion campaigns. There's like 2 different retargeting campaigns. There's like an audience testing campaign. And sometimes when I've gone in to try and yank out that engine and put in this full broad like algorithm maxi approach, it doesn't work. So I also think that there's not like one size fits all when it comes to building up your approach and your campaign structure. So that's why every time like we have conversations about this, I always want to be like, yes, here's how I would do it. But also like I've seen going full broad algorithm maxi like can like really tank results in some cases. So you just have to be really mindful about that.
Yeah, love it. Test everything, try everything. Don't assume anything, I think is the big takeaway from all that. We've done both of those options, and we probably have a little bit more breakout than most at this point, but it's what works for us.
There was a great comment in the chat from Christiana, though, about the test everything. I just do whatever Dara says, and my boss thinks I'm a genius.
I love that. Thank you.
Dara does the testing, and then she spills out the good. But yeah, we have some questions from the audience as well. So let's let Dhruv. What are your thoughts on the fact that everyone is saying UGC is dead? It's better to only focus on organic storytelling, content type Yeah. So what do you think about this statement? Did you see any truth in that? It's not the first time I hear about it.
I guess I haven't heard that UGC is dead, especially given my comments about the success we've had with creator kind of content in many cases. So I don't know, maybe I'll have to pass on that question, I guess.
Definitely have heard the sentiment. And I would say too that to some extent, I do think that it is true. However, I think that it's also this also happened because there was so much shitty UGC being put out into the world. And it wasn't just about, UGC is dead as a format style. It was just, we were oversaturated with a lot of bad UGC. And what I've seen for many of my clients right now is, hey, you know what? Image graphics are working better for some of them. And carousels are also working really good. I've had this stance for like the last year that really for any brand to be successful on paid social, especially meta ads, you need to have a variety of creative winners in different formats. So you should be testing images. You should find winning images. You should find winning carousels. You should find winning UGC. You should also, have that really branded studio content. And that mix is going to really help people anchor your story as a brand to say, hey, this is what we're about. And this is like the brand from the brand story, but then also like the UGC stuff shows how our users think of it. I don't think UGC completely is dead, but I do think that I see a renewed interest in our industry with, hey, images work and they're a lot cheaper to produce and you don't have the hassle of like going through and like making your working with a creator, and it's just such a long process. So not dead, but I think it's sitting down respectfully.
Yeah, add to one layer to that, I think it's just about being authentic and being genuine. User-generated content is about user-generated, not going out to a studio and buying a bunch of ads from people that are pretending to be users. Are these people that actually love the product, use the product, know the product? Their testimonial is incredibly important, but it's just that. It's a testimonial. It's part of the funnel. It's part of the options that play. So I agree with Dara and what you're saying about just really test everything, have everything in the mix. Only UGC, and especially I think fake UGC is dying. But that's because the customer is getting wiser and is understanding that some of this stuff is a bit manipulative. We want to be genuine. You have to be authentic. It's the only thing that's going to work at the end of the day.
Speaking of fake UGC, we haven't mentioned Chat GDP in this call, which I'm kind of shocked. But I have started, like everybody, has started playing around with it, and it is kind of astonishing how you can reduce the amount of effort that it takes to generate creative. It's amazing. I would encourage everyone to just, you can even just type how to use chat to create a video in Google, and there's 100 videos that show you this enormous, oh my gosh. And so, is this really how are consumers going to react to this? And are they going to detect sort of a lack of authenticity that's going to, ultimately hurt the creative execution is something I think we really have to watch out for as people who, create creatives.
Oh, no, I just wanted to talk about AI a little bit because I think I was one of those AI skeptics at first. I would see what people would put out and I would see the content about it and I was like, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sold. I am much more recently sold. And my take on it is this is another skill set that people have to learn.
Absolutely.
If you are a creator,
Absolutely.
if you are on the creative production side, if you're in this industry, you have to develop your AI skills, because I don't think that AI is going to replace creatives, but we need to learn how to use AI so that we can level ourselves up. And the way that I've really been excited about it recently is for the creative strategy research. We're able to really automate a lot of sifting through the customer testimonials, which has been a huge unlock for me personally. But the actual creating of the creatives, it's another tool. So it's another thing that we need to learn, but I don't think it's going to replace us totally.
Well, one thing is just being able to, create titles for your video and create outlines and create, the scripts and just it just generates these things in seconds. And then, no, you're not going to just take that script and use it, what you're going to do is edit it. You're going to make sure you're curating it and you're making sure that it's actually what it's saying is accurate, which could be a problem. But I think it just condenses the timeline. And that was something that all of my clients struggle with, is really the volume of creatives that you need to support all these platforms. It used to be in the Wayback Machine that you took your $200,000 or $300,000, you gave it to a creative agency, and you came up with a couple of 30-second television commercials. When we thought that was super expensive, but at least the effort that it took was much less on the brand side. Now, we as brand marketers have to be involved in all of these different platforms. It's a big resource. So I think that using something like ChatGPT to, shorten the resources and the timeline is something, as you said exactly, that, it's part of our portfolio, and really everyone has to start learning it.
We'll wrap up on this, but Phil, have you started using AI in your creative process, or is that something that you guys are considering, and to which capacity?
Yeah, a little bit. We use it as a way to generate ideas, but for the simple stuff, for headlines, for taglines, for volume, not as much for big ideas, scripts, that type of thing, but maybe we should. So always testing.
It's pretty interesting.
Well, thanks a lot, everybody, for joining us today. Dara, Joan, Philip, it's been a real pleasure having you. And thanks so much again. And we'll be chatting very soon.